G'day and welcome to the Hunters Campfire Podcast. My name's Mark and along with good mate Ian, we're here to help with all things hunting. If you're looking to start but don't know where to begin, you want to make the most of your next trip away or even plan that hunt of a lifetime, we've got something for you. You'll find our podcasts on Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon and plenty of others. And if you want more, head over to our YouTube channel, The Hunters Campfire, where we have plenty of how-to and hunting videos along with the full video production of every podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and good hunting. Good evening, guys.
Good evening, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well on this Australia Day. Australia Day. Still Australia Day.
Still Australia Day. I have the battle wound to prove it.
Yeah. John's got the injury to prove it.
What did you say? Rum and pools and concrete?
Rum and swimming pools, that's it, on Australia Day. It's a recipe for disaster.
Very Australian of you.
That's it.
That's very Queensland of you, in fact.
Yeah. It was Bundaberg rum. Absolutely.
There you go.
Would be anything else? Single barrel as well, Mark. The one you like.
Wow.
Yeah,
Posh stuff.
The posh stuff.
Get the good stuff.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, gents. Well, for those who are listening, the reason why we're here tonight is to talk about the current feral deer action plan, which I think you're holding up.
It's one.
I better read this. Better read that out, mate.
This is the National Feral Deer Action Plan 2022 to 2027 draft out for consultation. And
sure.
We've had quite a few people call and say, "What's your opinion? What do you think about this? What do you think about that?" So we thought we'd jump on a quick session just to talk through what our initial thoughts are after reading through the draft.
Sure. And look, for those, again, listening and watching, what we want to do is trying to give this some structure. And the reason for that is we want to be informative as possible. We don't want to get stuck on one particular subject or have a point of contention about a certain part of the plan. We want to give you an overview of the plan as we see it, and also towards the end, and as we go along, some actions you could take. So we want to really look at this, I suppose, from as objective an opinion as we can form. Again, it is our opinion. We weren't involved in the drafting. We weren't involved in the consultation process to date. And people have asked us our opinion, so that's what we'd like to provide. So to kick off, how do you want to go? Should we do a round table, guys?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I've got a really easy first question that I'll just throw out there, and we'll take it from there. It's in a pretty easy, readable format, so we'll scroll down as we go and carry on. But the first question I asked as we were leading off this in the preamble was, who wrote this document? It's got some information on here. The National Feral Deer Action Plan, put out by somebody with an email address of feraldeerplan.org.au. I incorrectly assumed, guys, that this was a DAF document or some sort of state or federal government document. This seems to be an independent.
Yeah, so look, if you look at the last page of the document, it actually states that this was written by the Invasive Species Unit of Biosecurity South Australia. So it seems that South Australia is trying to write a national plan for the management of deer.
And I don't know Biosecurity South Australia. I don't know if they're a state government department or who they are, but that's...
I've actually just Googled them, and the government, it's actually a government unit. It's under the government of South Australia. It's under their Department of Primary Industry and Regions, and it's been brought about to control the established pest or feral animals or introduced animals that severely impact our environment, economy, and social amenity. Our biosecurity division maintains the productivity of our primary industries, protects our natural environments, and sustains the health and well-being of our communities. Okay. Is their motto, what they're here to do.
So what we can draw so far is that the national plan is emanating from South Australia.
Correct.
Okay. So about the plan then, let's jump, I suppose. If anything else, Ian, I didn't know who wrote it, to be honest. So
yeah, it's just interesting when you dig down to it. Big disclaimer saying that the government has had no input into it, and it's none of their view. It's obviously just put together in this draft format. So
Sure.
anyway, let's move forward and ask some questions.
Yeah, look, for me, there's like a series of things that I suppose that resonate with me. One of them is, I suppose, a philosophical approach, and that is that since colonisation, we've introduced species to this country, vertebrate species. So, cane toads, foxes, rabbits, hares, deer, pigs, goats, lots of birds, trout, fish, lots of other things that I probably should know.
Can't forget buffalo.
Carp. Okay, we've introduced a lot of these things. Okay, tilapia. There is some argument, and I don't want to cause any controversy, that in fact the dingo was an introduced species. That it wasn't from a biological point of view, it came from somewhere else to Australia, and it actually was one of the key drivers for the destruction of the Tasmanian tiger on the mainland. It couldn't compete, and a newer, more aggressive species turned up, and the old marsupial species retreated to Tasmania, where the dingoes couldn't get it. So, that's an argument to have some other time, but we know that we have introduced, since colonisation, lots and lots of animals to this country. And what we know is we have yet to get rid of one of them. Okay? And the general way we go about trying to ineffectively get rid of something is we try and shoot it, we try and poison it. In the case of rabbits, we get a bit biological. We play around with poisons, Khaleesi and myxomatosis. We try and trap them, and we try and fence them. Okay? And so far, that doesn't work. And if you look at this plan, it talks about shooting, baiting, poisoning, trapping, fencing. So when I look at this plan, I kind of think, holy moly, this plan is suggesting that we invest all this money and follow this playlist that to date, hasn't worked. It's like, it's just we're repeating the old processes that don't work, and we have an opportunity here to actually look at deer as a valuable resource that needs to be managed, but has an opportunity to actually not be a sunk loss. And this plan doesn't recognise that. This plan goes, kill them, shoot them, poison them, trap them, fence them, problem solved. We haven't, but if you did that for any other species, we know that that doesn't work.
Just doesn't work. Yeah.
And I mean, Jono, you gave before when we were talking about numbers. What was the number that you quoted that recreational hunting provides to Victoria?
So in 2019, the economic benefit to Victoria was $356 million and 3,138 jobs.
Okay. And I know New South Wales does that each year as well. They do a financial. In fact, the survey's just gone out about the financial benefits of recreational hunting.
And they actually break that down. And of that 356 million, 201 million was actually deer. So that shows the economic benefit of deer and deer hunting just in Victoria alone.
That's it. So we got $200 million a year economic benefit from putting deer on the ground.
Correct.
And this doesn't look at that at all. It doesn't go, okay, how can we turn this into an economic benefit? And look, the reality is if you do that, it pays for itself. So that's one of the bugbears that I get out of this. It's just repeating the old failed mantra. It's not saying, okay, let's look at this differently. What can we do here?
Let me play devil's advocate for a moment. I completely agree with what you're saying, by the way. I'm just going to throw some stuff out here. It does say on page 4, which is the first page of the executive summary, that it is not within the scope of this plan to set objectives for managing deer as a hunting resource. It doesn't mean that that's not possible. That just said it's not in the scope of this plan. Yeah. For trophies, meat, or recreation, this is because the approach to sustain or improve hunting experiences are different from the best practice approaches to reduce or minimise the impacts of feral deer. So they called that out. They're two very different things, and potentially the two of them can still stand side by side. They can go through a process of containing or reducing, whether that works or doesn't work, using the leftovers, if you want to put it that way, to be managed as a hunting resource is still possible. They're just not calling it out here, right?
That's right. So what I feel what this report is doing is it's kind of saying, yeah, you guys over there, with your funny clothes on, and you bang a deer and you put the trophy on the wall and you put some in your fridge, but the grown-ups are figuring out the real problem. The trouble with that is, and one is it dismisses a group within the community, and if we're going to be, and this document's all about community, well, again, recreational hunters are part of the community. In Victoria, there's 50,000 of them, nearly 50,000 of them. In New South Wales, there's 25,000. And those numbers I'm quoting are those who have the licences. So there is a lot more people who aren't licensed. So there is at least 25,000 in New South Wales, 50,000 in Victoria, 6,000 licences issued. The best stats we could find for Tasmania. Can't give you stats for Queensland, but we know that our great friend Ned and his association with the Pig Dog Hunting Association, they put out basically some stats to show how many pigs their members knock over every week. So you'd probably think that in real terms, the people who kill more deer than anyone else on the East Coast are us assassins in this room.
Mm.
We're knocking more deer over than anyone else. So to kind of say that recreational hunting is kind of like, a little sidebar issue where, over here playing, is actually to ignore the fact that
there is a significant role to play
that's right.
by hunting.
And look, there's no way that we're providing the only role, but that's recognised globally that hunting doesn't provide the only role. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It just provides a really good tool in a kit bag of management. So, and you see that all through that document, which I find really odd, because at one stage, in one instance they're dismissing recreational hunting, but in the next instance they're talking about the need for the community. So it's kind of
the need for recreational hunters to get certified and up to speed to support the culling programs. So
if I whack 6 deer a year down in New South Wales at the moment with an R license, that's nothing. If I get this certification and whack 6 now, I'm part of the I'm part of the solution.
Yeah.
So you can see that, to me, that is very much a actually I got sent an article about the benefits of recreational hunting on just this subject we're talking about, and the reality is there isn't any really good research in Australia to show one way or another. It's never been researched, and there's a couple of real major problems with it. One is, for instance, if we think about Nundle, a lot of deer get shot out of Nundle, and a lot of hunters go there because a lot of deer get shot out of Nundle. So that population is getting affected, but the populations around it, because
farmland, etc.,
they're not getting hit as hard, so it doesn't have, you're not affecting the population in total, you're affecting opportunistic pockets. And that's one of the problems with trying to look at recreational hunting as it exists, and seeing its benefits. But what it does talk about is that often recreational hunting is what they say is over-politicised and under-recognised. And again, I think that's what this report really drums home, is that it's kind of going, we know you're there, but this is the big show over here. And I think that misses a really substantial reality.
Yeah, and that's because it's written with some bias.
Yeah,
right. If it was an unbiased review, then you'd have the guys over here being asked about complete eradication, and you'd have the guys over here that like to hunt them and would like them as a sustainable resource, and there'd be lots of stuff in the middle that helps support all of that. But clearly, if they had an objective to wipe out the deer completely, and they could achieve that, they would do.
Yeah,
but they recognise.
If you read the document, one of the common words they use is eradicate. That's
right.
one of the most common words
right.
is eradicate.
So that's it. I mean, and look, historically, and when I think about that, I don't know if you gentlemen ever heard of the Emu Wars.
Mm-hmm.
The what, sorry?
The Emu Wars in the 30s in WA, because of the wheat belt. Emus got such a population that there's a potential threat they were to the food bowl. So they deployed the army to wipe out the emus. It's called the Emu Wars. You can look it up. It's real. You know who won? Emus won. Army couldn't get rid of the emus. And so and there's facts about it, but it's in these shows. It's very, very difficult to eradicate a species, even a species that's a native species, by simply just that kind of interaction. The way the way we make species go extinct is we remove habitat and we do all sorts of things. This kind of control mechanism to eradication, it's kind of a failed theory. So I find it a bit weird that we're hanging on to it.
Yeah. So let's just jump into a couple of those things then. They've written here what their goals were: stop the spread, control and drive down densities, and protect significant sites. That's the main themes that run through this thing. And yes, the methods used in the past have failed, but they're trying to introduce some new things here. Some of the things in there I found a little bit fast. I don't want to make this a super negative conversation.
No.
I think there's some positives in here, and you can see what they're trying to do. They recognise they can't be wiped out, which is, for the hunter, is a good thing. There's still opportunities for game, but there is this thing that they're trying to make this a national approach. And whilst we're giving statistics on Victoria and New South Wales, well, they have public land programs. Whereas it says in here, and where Queensland is, obviously we can't hunt public land. Where Queensland is calling out all the time, you see it in the media, that we have a feral deer problem. Yet it states in here from the Queensland government that they are effectively managing it through best practice.
That's right.
But that's not working. But they say it's working.
Yeah, that's right.
So what's working? Who's going to agree with what before we can get the whole country together to help it out?
I think that's a really interesting point. And I think one of the things that really resonate with me is that there's a statement up front about, deer were 30 years ago, deer were a novelty, and now they're like the next rabbit plague. Well,
yeah,
in Queensland we've had deer for over 100 years.
Correct.
So if the rabbit plague was going to hit, they're very slow breeding rabbits. These particular rabbits, they need to get their act going. And the other thing is, so it's not like, we know it's not like that. And the other thing is, I was really interested. They said that the species had increased, did they say 20-fold or something like that in the beginning of the document?
Let's have a look.
That is a huge increase.
Well, I did read that it said left uncontrolled in good conditions, feral deer populations can increase by 34 to 50% every year.
Every year. So if they're saying it's only increased by 20%.
No, 20-fold, I think they say.
20-fold. Okay.
Which is...
That's significant, yeah.
I don't know,
That's probably right over the years.
In 10 years or something, it said. They say over the last period of time. And my kind of feeling is that the case, or is it just that we're better at counting them?
It's possible.
I can't find the piece you're talking about.
Yeah, that's okay. No, I don't want to hang my hat on it. I just... that's one of the things that, that idea of that this new deer plague is going to hit. And look, and I don't want to dismiss the fact that there is in certain areas, and in certainly certain agricultural areas, deer are a real pest. I mean, I talk to landowners who hate them, and sure.
Here's the comment here. So they're saying that they've doubled their range over the past 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 1980s, there were about 50,000 feral deer. And then in the 80s. And the current population is likely to have reached 1 to 2 million. Well, that's a pretty broad number. So let's use the lower one. That's a significant increase, 50,000 to a million. Yeah. And like I say, no one's denying that. No one's denying that they're moving around. I'd be interested to see what your thoughts are around the way that they think that they'd like to control them. And the one that stands out to me the most is the development of poison.
Yep.
Because for hunters, we can agree or disagree. It doesn't really matter in our own group whether we agree that this is good or bad. But what are the impacts of that poison? Like if they're going to go and drop stuff out of planes, if they're going to develop a poison, what if I shoot that animal a day after it's eaten the bait? What sort of impacts are we going to have? How are we going to know about this bait that's being developed because they've never had one here? They're the concerns really that I've got up front about the baiting. I'm not against baiting to control things. I'm not for it either, but it's a tool, and sadly, so's a bullet. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I not having a great deal of knowledge around baits. My understanding of baits kill relatively quickly, so you wouldn't find yourself in that position. I know someone, again, I got sent a study about the effectiveness of baiting, and it said like cyanide kills dogs in about 7 minutes. And I know 1080 kills very quickly too. So I would assume that a bait built for deer would kill that deer. So there would probably be no crossover between hunter and baited animals. I don't know about specific deer, dietary requirements that you could build a bait that would only
that's what I was thinking.
Deer would only eat, but because I suppose when you're baiting predators, it's it's meat.
It's different. Yeah.
So basically, if you bait wild dogs, a fox might eat it, a cat might eat it, but a quoll might eat it.
They have developed other baits that have a pressure sort of switch sensor. So if it doesn't have the pressure bite of the target that they're chasing, it won't release the spray.
So I don't know how those things work. I don't know.
But a deer being a browser and a grazer, depending on the species.
That's the thing is, certain deer are browsers and grazers, but other deers aren't.
Yeah.
So
but how are you going to differentiate between a kangaroo, other herbivores that are out there? How are they going to target?
I don't understand that.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't understand that. I don't have any, philosophical issues with baiting if it's needed. If baiting is the best answer, then it's the best answer. But I kind of, again, I get back to this. I think it seems like we're just reaching into the old trick bag and rebranding it, and it hasn't worked in the past, and I don't expect it's going to work in the future. I mean, we've all hunted in forests in New South Wales where there is baiting programs going on, and you still see the animals that are target to that baiting program.
Absolutely. So they don't get them all.
No. So again, I don't know how effective a deer bait would be, and I don't know how effective a deer bait would be where you have red deer and fallow deer in the same area, because they have different, wholly different. Well, they feed it differently. So
I guess that's why they're saying they need to develop one. There isn't one. They need to develop one and some money and go into research if this plan gets off the ground.
That's it. I don't know anything enough about. I know that baits is you eat it, you're dead. It kills you. That's it.
Yeah,
that's the whole deal.
There's speculation around 1080 for dogs that then whatever eats the dog also gets the residual and it dies. Yeah. Some will argue against that. Some will argue for it. We can't really talk too much about debating because if it's not been developed, we don't know. But my natural thoughts are, how does that impact others around it?
Sure.
The deer then become illegal to hunt because of the potential side effect to humans. These are the things that scare me a little bit. Not so much the bait killing the animal.
The thing about baiting, what I suppose what kind of pops up in my mind is that the thing about deer is they're a big animal. So, when they're dead, they're not, if they die in what they, around humans, you see them, they're not like a fox or a rabbit or something like that. You're more likely to see them. If you think about what's happened recently with the horse cull and the stop of the horse cull when people started finding dead horses lying around, you kind of wonder if that's the same thing that's going to happen with this. If someone's going to begin walking in a national park and come along and there's a herd of fallow that have eaten this poison and they're all dead on the ground.
Well, that's a really interesting thing, because one of the comments about letting hunters hunt in parks in Queensland was that no one wants to see an injured animal dying in a creek when they're walking with their family for a picnic.
That's right.
That's the image of a hunter putting a bad place shot in. The bait is effectively going to do the same thing.
Well, and we know that the interesting reality of that is if your family's going to be walking in that creek, I won't be hunting there because you're scaring a deer away.
Yeah.
I'm going to go where your family never goes.
That's very true. All right, well, let's talk about a couple of the other control measures that would have raised all the hunters' eyebrows, especially us three, but I'm sure everyone that's read that's gone suppressors and thermals and autoloaders.
Sure.
So things that we don't have access to now are now being talked about in a positive way in this report. So this is a good thing.
Yeah.
Where do you think that's going?
I think it's a great thing. I think it's it's one of those wonderful things called unintended consequences.
Yeah.
If you want to increase the capability of someone shooting to kill more game, autoloader makes sense.
Yeah, so does a suppressor. You're not going to be scaring the head.
And I think it's important that they use the word autoloader and that because, and I think it's for a lot of reasons. But one of the when people tend to think of these things, they tend to think of the AR platform. So we're thinking a military or semi-automatic. But around the world, there is sporting rifles that are autoloaders. There is semi-automatic sporting rifles. There's a couple of them that I really, really like. I wish I could own one, but I can't. But if they think I'm as a qualified hunter to carry an autoloader, thank you very much. I'll take that. If you want me to put a suppressor on it, well, that's just what most people do around the world in various countries. It's not a problem at all in England. In fact, in certain places you have to have it. It's really
mandatory.
Weird. You can't shoot with that one.
Yeah.
It's like, don't shoot. You can't shoot with that. You're dangerous. You can't shoot with that, or you're dangerous. It's really weird how that works. But yeah, carrying a suppressor, you have to carry a suppressor. So again,
So as someone, Mark, I know you've shot in the UK, but I've lived in the UK for a number of years, and I hunted on properties that you had to have a suppressor. It was mandatory, and it's not just for the benefit of the game. You're not spooking the game, but it's for your own benefit. You've got the social of your own hearing. It becomes an issue. How many old hunters do you know are hard of hearing because of they've been shooting too much? Yeah. But then again, you're talking about the families down the creek line. Yeah. Well, if you're shooting with a suppressor, they're not actually probably going to know you're there because they're not going to hear the shot. I've been sat in a high seat shooting deer, and I've had people walking up on a public bridleway or walkway behind me, and they don't know you're there. You take a shot, and they don't need. It's unnoticeable.
Is that for real, Jono?
Yes.
Not calling you a liar, but I didn't. You don't silence a high-powered rifle, though.
It's not silencing, but it makes a big difference. A huge difference.
It takes the supersonic noises away.
Yeah,
right?
and in England, you do hunt next to people.
Yes,
you do.
Yeah.
You're sat in a seat.
You do it in Victoria as well. You go hunting in public land of Victoria. You could be walking the fire trail that borders someone's property.
This is like public walkway. So
public walkway,
you'll be in a high seat, and someone with Missy with a poo bag will go underneath the high seat.
Yeah, absolutely true.
When you're shooting birds, it's even worse because it's shorter range. You'll be. I remember once we were shooting over. Basically, we were shooting at a golf course. And this guy's playing golf, and we were shooting Yeah, so you do. Yeah. It's really different, that kind of interaction between hunting and the non-hunting public.
But the other thing is so you're not speaking game, you're not damaging your hearing, you're not disturbing the public around you. And I mean, in Australia, we don't have the issue of it's not like England where everyone's on top of each other. We have a lot of space, but it actually makes you a better shot, because people who are scared of recoil, a suppressor is going to suppress that. It makes them a better shot. And then at the end of the day, they're shooting better. This game's not going to be spooked. They're going to be shooting more game. So it's just a win-win situation.
Right. Yep. So for this action plan, it's a good tool for the purposes of culling and getting more more deer on the ground, etc. Byproduct is, assuming that they allow those that get certified to use them in everyday hunting activities, that would be great. Otherwise, we potentially get restricted.
And in the UK, it's not like it's not a free for all. So you have to have a suppressor listed on your firearms license. Yeah, you can go off and buy one, and you can have one on all your rifles. You still have to be approved to own one. So it's not like weapons licensing is just not going to know about it. They're going to know you've got a suppressor. So if you're off culling deer somewhere, or poaching or something like that, chances are, weapons licensing, they're going to know who owns a suppressor. So it's not like we're just letting it a free for all out there.
Yeah.
And
once again, though, mate.
Poaching.
Once again, though, they're going to know who owns the suppressor. They'll be able to police those that have the suppressor, but it's the guy that didn't register it.
Oh, of course.
The one
there's always the exceptions to the rule.
But we can't build laws for, as I think Brian Boyle said. You either build laws for people, to stop people, or to reward people. So you either build laws that drive good behaviour, or you either build laws that try to suppress bad behaviour.
Suppress.
Yeah,
that's right. It's a
good word.
So and don't forget too, if we had suppressors, we had rifles setups that were more designed for culling, as in like a suppressor for state forest hunting, when you're shooting pigs and goats.
Yeah.
When you're shooting deer, it's less startling for the animal. It's less stress.
Yep.
There is a lot to be said about them, that they make a lot of sense. It's just that, again, it's that politicisation of the issue, and I think that's it. So I'd be very happy to apply to get a autoloader with a suppressor, and then stick a thermal on top, and why not? I wouldn't say no.
Could be fun. Look forward to the review.
That's right.
All right. So one of the other things that I thought was quite interesting, and I'm trying to madly scroll through here to have a look at where I found it, but they were talking about the use of drones and night vision and those sorts of things. This just calls out some information that is completely wrong.
Yes.
And that is, and I'm trying to find their exact wording, but it doesn't matter. They claimed in one of the tables that drones are a good tool to use because they're proven not to scare wildlife, specifically deer. BS. Like, use them. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I think you should be able to use them to throw the thermals up, and it could help you with tracking. It could help you with population numbers, etc. But they scare the shit out of deer.
Yeah. Well, most drone footage is deer running.
They're running away as fast as they could possibly go.
Or goats or pigs running. Why are they running? Because the drone.
I don't know where they get some of the information, but anyway, I just wanted to state that one because it just jumped out at me. I thought, this is mad.
Well, that's, I think, a compendium to that is this idea of deer and car crashes.
Yeah, good point.
Done had a look at that. And this is not hard information to find. For instance, if you just type in, animal car crashes in Australia, and you'll get the stats up. Craig, one of our predecessors, Craig Golding, posted something some time ago, and I asked him to find it for me. Basically, it's something like 88% kangaroos, 6%, wallabies. So over 90% of car crashes with animals are macropods. Then I think it went wombats, then dogs, and then there was this 1% group, which is actually, by the way, anyway, the 1% is represented by a cow. So obviously the leader of the 1% is a cow. That was the 1% was the other group that deer would set in. Now, I wouldn't want to disregard or discredit anyone who's had a car crash and hit a deer. I would say that would be a pretty scary thing to do. They're a big animal. But again, you wonder why they pick that kind of platform to drive when the stats don't show that's the case.
Yeah.
Just like this about, animals aren't driven by drones. Maybe they're not driven by predator drones that, maybe that's what it is. Maybe you need like a predator,
Yeah, I need one of those
global
really,
hawks, that's right.
One of those ones that are kilometres up.
That's right, 35,000 feet up in the air. Maybe they don't scare you, but your GoPro attached to you, that's going to scare you. We know that. So yeah, and that kind of, I suppose, statement in there is what I call it. It's just the plain wrong stuff. It just
and the overreaching here.
It discredits.
The same social impact. Feral deer on private property may attract illegal poaching. Well, it might, and it might not. But owning a car can attract thieves to come and steal my car, Jono.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, if you talk to a farmer, one of the biggest problems is people coming on stealing diesel.
Yeah.
So it's like saying a Land Cruiser attracts thieves.
Yeah. So, I mean, but there's social and cultural impacts. Jono, you brought up an interesting stat about, about the money that we were generating earlier and the social contribution of hunters to this topic. Here they're trying to caution us about vehicle accidents in that 1% and, over-aggressive bucks and stags, COVID spreading crazy deer, and illegal trespass because we can't, withstand temptation and the like. So, that's a whole bunch of interesting things. But the amount of money that's contributed is phenomenal.
Well, again, it's very rarely if you want, you can measure something on the negative, but you can measure it on the positive. And then the reality is, if we look at, again, just that number out of Victoria, yes, there is illegal, and it's called illegal for a reason because it is illegal activities associated with deer, spotlighting from the roads, poaching and stuff like that. But that's to be controlled. That's what we already have the law for. What we hardly would want to disregard that, but by all the social benefits that come from the participation in recreational hunting in Victoria. It just doesn't make sense. It only makes sense if you're pushing that particular barrow. If you're pushing that, if that's your platform, then it makes sense. For the rest of us, it doesn't make sense. And it's like saying, often people say, it's a drive-by shooting. Get rid of guns, no drive-by shooting. That's cool. Get rid of Commodores, no drive-by shooting, because most of them are Commodores. So the logic is not there. You don't blame that for an illegal action. Blame the person who did the illegal thing. That's how our system works. It's not perfect, but it's not a bad approach. So if there is illegal activity around hunting, as in people poaching, spotlighting stuff, go after them. Go hard. And I don't know any recreational hunter who has, who thinks of their pursuit in an ethical manner would actually say, don't go after them. Because we know they damage our reputation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
So go after them. Go after them. Get after them.
And on that, do you not think if they were to make hunting on public land in Queensland, legal, it would reduce the amount of illegal hunting because we're going to have the access that we're craving. At the moment, we don't have that, and it's going to lead people to be able to do the right thing and go actually legally hunt. And if the people who are few and far between who are actually doing it illegally, we're going to be reporting them. We're going to say, well, he's trespassing, he's hunting illegally. Go after him.
The same as what happens in New South Wales, in the app that allows you to
report it.
Yeah. I'm have no problem saying I've reported activity twice.
So have I
over time.
And I had someone from the R license group contact me within 24 hours.
Yep, same
To
here.
get all the detail they possibly could. And this was about, this was illegal pigging.
Yep.
We knew they shouldn't have been there. So, yeah, good on them for following it up.
And that's right. I mean, and, again, that's I suppose that's something that through experience. You know that if and I always find that quite farcical when they say, blow-ins from the city have come and done something. I can't really see that someone would drive 1,000 kilometres just to do something illegal, like hunting, when they could just drive 1,000 kilometres and get access to umpteen kilometres of public land. It just makes no sense. Now, I don't say that someone doesn't do that, but for the vast majority of people, it's about, I've got this opportunity to do something, so I'm going to do everything right to make the most of this opportunity. It's not like, I'll risk it. No way. I'm committing all this resource, time, money, again, which this report doesn't even credit
acknowledge
the fact that the thing about those 119,000 deer that were shot in Victoria was they were shot by recreational hunters. So the vast majority of the costs associated with killing those deer were borne by the individuals.
And they contributed to the economy in doing
That's right. That's right. So not only they shop at Morago 30 and they do this and they do that and all those wonderful things, and they buy ammo for Beretta and all that stuff, all that contribution. That's part of it. But when it comes down to it, they're funding that whole activity themselves, and we're disregarding that funding. We're saying, that's not really that important. In fact, it's hugely important.
It is. So if you think about all of those extra control measures, the auto-loading, suppressors, drones, thermal tech, all of that, they're points of difference to trying to eradicate pest species in the past. It's going to give it...
I couldn't tell you that.
Except the army chasing emus, I'm sure
well,
they
no,
had the
I
tech 10
think,
years ago.
I think, trouble is we're dealing with gun laws here, but, pre-1996 in Australia, a rabbit rifle was generally a semi-auto, little semi-auto.
True.
So that was it. It was a rifle. You had a little rabbit rifle. So, again, it's not new technology. It's just that for a goodly chunk of time, it hasn't been available for over, 27 years, and it hasn't been available to us.
So it's more the thermals and drones and things. And yes, they can be used, but like I said, drones scare the animals off. Maybe if you can push them higher and use thermals on them, that's okay. But thermals are only good when it's cool. You can't use them on hot days. So there's lots of
and look,
it's. I guess what I was asking was, do you think that the possibility for them to do a better job with modern technology is there?
Oh yeah, I think it's. Let's be honest, it's a hell of a lot easier to kill a deer with a rifle today than it was 100 years ago.
Sure.
When you were stuffing them. Well, actually, no, that's not 100. No, there's still bolt action. But, even then, so technology does make things, optics, a whole lot. It does make it easier. It doesn't negate skill. It does make it easier. And so, you can use technologies, what the term they use, a force multiplier. It makes you better on multiples. So just that stands to reason. But I think what this report could do, and which it doesn't do, is it doesn't advocate for more access.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, I think that is the defining problem in front of them. Is they're saying that these things need to be hit harder. Okay, I'm not going to argue about that because I don't know the science behind it. But the reality is, if you look at places, and we know this for a fact in Queensland, our challenge is not deer. Our challenge is getting access to deer.
Yeah.
So if you really wanted to do something about deer numbers, that would be a really good return on investment. You would advocate for places like Queensland and South Australia too, because South Australia, they don't have the same kind of access as Victoria and New South Wales does. So and WA, we know there is access of a sorts in Northern Territory, but again also in Tasmania. So if you really wanted to have an impact on deer numbers in a sustainable, cost-effective way, you would start advocating for more hunters to get access to more deer.
And look, it's something that's available. Like the New South Wales have, openly said that they would offer the platforms and get them started. It's something you could turn on straight away, and you would have immediate impact. This is anyway. We're not going to convince anyone about that here, but it is absolutely crazy.
To me, that's one of the when I look at this document, what I see is basically tried and failed methods of control being regurgitated as something innovative. If they really want to do control, they want to have an impact on control, which and I don't argue that that is needed, but I'm sure that there is, in certain circumstances, there is a definite need for a higher level of control. I'm not going to argue that. But if you want to do that, you won't achieve that by kind of banging the old drum. Okay? It's not going to work. And why doesn't it work? Well, let me introduce you to all these feral species over here that seem to be doing pretty good. We've got continuing reports about pig numbers going through the roof. So that's reality. It's just an example. So you have to my way of thinking is you've got to be innovative. And how do you innovate? Well, one of the ways you innovate is you help hunters get more access. Now, that doesn't mean you make access mandatory or you railroad people. You don't. You work with people, but you work a system. You find a system that works where there isn't access. For instance, in Queensland, you work a system that does help with access. And if Queensland is saying we've got a good management strategy, okay, access would only help, would be a benefit to that system. So it doesn't negate that system, doesn't override that system. It's just a value add to that system. It's a value add for a lot of different reasons. And if we are really concerned about community, well, we all know that hunting helps rural and regional communities because it brings money in.
Absolutely.
There's lots and lots of benefits to be had here, but we've kind of looked at these from this really negative point of view.
When you look at those Victorian numbers, $200 million just in contribution from deer. Imagine that in rural Queensland.
Well, even if it was only a quarter, if the argument was, okay, this strategy says, okay, we're going to help advocate for more access into Queensland in a wholly acceptable manner, and it's going to pump $50 million into the rural economy.
$50 million in some regional towns is a significant amount of money.
Who's going to say that's a bad idea?
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
And because we know what it does, it creates all these beneficial industries around that. And what do you get? You get a control method that helps control the challenge.
It's a win-win situation.
Yeah.
I had ideas come to mind, but I don't want to turn this into a public land access conversation because it absolutely is part of what it should be. But let's go back to this. Did you have a look at the maps? And you obviously had to read. Well, I say, do you have a look at the maps? I had a look at the maps, and I struggled to read them. But applying logic, you get it there because the key colours don't match the colours on the map, sadly. And
yes.
For the colourblind guy, I struggled seriously.
There was something about that. I did remember. I did this.
Zone 1 is not the same colour. It's not anyway. It doesn't matter. I think, like I said, if you apply some logic, you can understand what they're trying to do. One of the things that they're doing here is they've acknowledged that in areas where there are lots of large populations of deer, they're going to look to prioritise protecting local assets where it's feasible. But then they've got this idea of a national containment buffer zone, which looks like it's west of. I don't know. It's like that, mate. Yeah, it's like the
It's a
tick
dog
line.
fence. It's a rabbit-proof fence. It's
not a fence. It's a theoretical. It's a tick line. It's a theoretical line in the ground that says, "Thou shalt not cross, Mr. Deer."
Yeah,
that's right.
Or we'll blow you away. Oh. And maybe they'll put a whole lot more effort into that containment line or any animals that cross it.
But for me, that containment line isn't natural deer. It's not a deer habitat.
Well,
heading out west. So
no, that's right.
Well, then it may be very effective.
But why are we having a buffer zone? What are you buffing them from? They're not going to head out.
I suppose if you run a containment line west of Thargomindah to stop deer, you'll probably do pretty do a good job.
Yeah, you'll be able to claim success.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm just having a look at the map because because there's no names on the map.
Correct.
It's hard to judge the distance, but there's a couple of geographical sections that will help.
Famous walls that come to mind, Hadrian's Wall, Great Wall of China, Trump's Wall, rabbit-proof fence, dog fence, all of these things, this is not new. And, in certain instances, in certain ways that are applied, they provide a part of a larger control strategy. They work to a level. But they have to be maintained. They have to be installed, and two, they have to be maintained. It's not big picture thinking.
No.
Agreed.
I'm just trying to. Yeah, it looks like they've got the containment. Well, west of us is Moree, is the beginning of it.
Is it west of Moree or east of Moree?
No, it's actually Gundy by the looks of it.
Gundawindi, probably, yeah. So again, west of Gundawindi or east
west of Gundy. Gundy is the easternmost point at that part of the country of the containment line. Gundy west. Yeah.
Don't mention the Pilliga then.
No. Well, in Texas and all of those sorts of places. But just the containment line concept. They didn't put a lot of information in there about what they think they're going to do with that buffer zone.
Yeah.
Well, what I like is if you look at that national containment buffer zone, one of the last sentence says the exact location of zone to be determined. So they don't even know.
No.
Yeah, this is a draft. Yep.
Yeah, I know, but it's just the wet finger in the air as far as I'm concerned.
There's some time ago I read a similar research paper that was about deer and and all the problems with deer that they generate, and it was a relatively well written academic paper. When you got to the bibliography at the back, it was amazing how many references made in that research paper about the problems of deer were taken from deer hunting knowledge in Australia and key people in the deer hunting industry here in Australia. It was like the person writing it read deer hunting stuff and used that to kind of negate the effectiveness of deer hunting. And when you read these things, I know you get that kind of feeling that we're not talking, this is not being written by people with a high level of on-the-ground expertise about what they're talking about. And I may be completely wrong, and I'm the first person to admit I'm wrong. I was once wrong in '93, I think. But anyway, apart from that, so I'm happy to be told I'm wrong, but I'm not getting that. What I'm getting is, a kind of hodgepodge of ideas about how to do something that we don't even really have a clear understanding of the adverse effects across the board.
Agreed. So, with those sorts of statements, what do we have to be concerned about?
Apathy.
Do you want to explain that to those that don't
My
have dictionary?
hunting friends out there, I have a great deal of respect for you, but sometimes we can be a little bit lazy. We're too busy chasing deer to worry about taking the fight up to stop people from letting us to chase deer. We can be a bit apathetic, or we can be not apathetic, but we could be focused on other things, i.e. chasing deer. I think one of the challenges here is that if this doesn't get challenged by people who have a vested interest, us, then it becomes law. Or not law, but it becomes accepted knowledge. It becomes accepted knowledge, if you will. Not
hearing.
law.
Yeah.
Well, more than that, it becomes, okay, it's written, so that it must be true. So what is the risk here is that hunters don't respond to this. And my advice to hunters would be to respond to it. And I don't want to tell you how to respond, because I think that's me imposing my thoughts on your opinion. But my advice is my plea is to please respond. Respond. Take the time, write in, read it, get an understanding of it, and comment on it and provide that commentary. It is vitally important that people provide commentary.
So, with that, I don't recall anywhere in this document, and it must be here, where it calls for input or feedback.
Yep.
It's got an inquiries number at the bottom.
It does, yeah.
But I don't see anywhere that says, here's our draft for consultation, here's how to respond. Have you seen anything?
I haven't got my glasses on, so I can't see anything at the moment.
I can't say I've seen anything, mate. I saw inquiries, but no request for feedback or...
Right, so as an action...
Now, my feeling, and I'm going to have to sort through this, because I thought there was a call of a date for submissions. So I'm going to
probably is on their websites, just not.
I'm
in
going
the
to have a
document.
quick look while we're right here to make sure I can find that.
So, the question I asked was, what are the risks? Your answer is, there's a risk that people won't respond to it, and therefore it becomes a document that gets passed through quite easily. But if we know that past programs have not worked, if we know that this is being pulled out of South Australia, it's not a national approach, it's them trying to push it forward as a national approach. If we know that they're unlikely to get consensus between the states because they struggle to do that in any way, what are the other risks? I'm not saying that we should dismiss this as something that someone's written and it won't get a hearing, but if it does get up in its form, they're talking about protecting assets where there's large populations of deer, controlling numbers in the buffer zone, and trying to reduce numbers with whatever budget they're given. Think it's going to have a major impact on the population?
I believe it'll have an impact. I think it'll have more of an impact to recreational hunters than it will to the deer, to be honest. I think the deer are going to continue to spread regardless, maybe slower, but I don't think you're going to stop it. Like we've spoken about it at length. We've not managed to stop any other invasive species from spreading in Australia. We've not managed to eradicate them. We're not going to stop it. I think that the biggest impact is going to be to recreational hunting and the benefit that it has to the economy and to our what we enjoy doing. I think that's going to be the biggest impact. And if the states don't stand up to it, I think this is going to become just widely accepted across the states. And I know you say the states don't agree on everything. We know that. But if no one else is putting anything else up, who's to say that they're not just going to accept it? Yeah. Because no one else is standing up for it.
Yeah, good point. So stand up for it.
stand up for it. We've got to speak. We've got to have a voice. Like what works in South Australia is not going to work in Queensland.
Well, I found what I was looking for, and it was actually an email from the ADA. It says, as part of the ongoing advocacy efforts of the ADA, a detailed submission is being prepared on behalf of the membership. And then it says individual members can make private submissions via email to the coordinator at the deer plan, which is on the document. And submissions are due by Monday, the 20th of March. I knew I read something around there about that. So please make submissions.
And we'll drop the document and that email address in the description of the video, so you can find it easily.
I suppose I have a feeling the positive side of me is that this won't get up anyway, and if it does get up, it won't have any real effect on anything. It may generate some activity in certain areas. So, for instance, they might fly helicopters over, Royal National Park and shoot some rooster or something like that. But I think the costs, where things are at, the fact that how states work and how animals don't care about borders. Mm-hmm. Deer do not, deer don't care. Deer in the Currumbin Valley don't care about crossing over to New South Wales. You're driving through Texas and you see a chittle on the side of the road. It doesn't care if a couple of hours later it's down there past Goat Rock sign. It doesn't care. If it can get across the Demerrick, it's happy if it wants to.
Yeah. Potentially, the biggest threat then that I can see is if they do get funding to develop a bait program, and that becomes available to states to use as part of their control measures. That could have some major impacts for us.
Yeah, I suppose the upside, and it's not really particularly an upside, but the upside of that is that states don't usually work particularly well together. So and lobby groups within states might say, well, that bait's acceptable here, but it's not acceptable there, because I'm sure, and I've had again conversations around this, is that the kind of uneasy feeling that I have about baiting as a recreational hunter, some landowners have that feeling too, but not as a recreational hunter. They have it about from a different point of view. There is a lot of people who have uneasy feelings about baits and things like that. That's what it is. So I don't think it's a done deal. But what I think it does more importantly, and I think, again, going back to my point about the importance of actually talking about this, is that if you don't know about this stuff and you read that document, you're going to probably think there's a major deer problem and that they need to be banged on the head pretty quick before this problem becomes a rabbit plague, and we know what a rabbit plague is, or a mouse plague or something like that. And I that's what is my major concern, that it doesn't get spoken about, and so the points that are important for and against don't get aired. It becomes just, it's bad, we're going to fix it by this way. And that's kind of, and look, I can be, I suppose a motivating factor for me for that is the fact that I'm a firearms owner, and I'm kind of used to it. If it's bad, blame me, type thing. So I'm the same way when it comes down around deer. I don't, and hunting.
Good point. Yeah. Righto. Well, I think that probably covers most of it. I mean, there's more information in the document, but it's reasonably short. It's easy to read.
Yeah.
At least half of it is them describing habitat around the maps and things like
and
that.
Marketing.
There's some good marketing. There's one example of how they might control by flying helicopters over burnt-out country for a couple of years because the deer will run out there and have dance parties, which they will go out there and chew that you've picked.
Yeah, that was really quite interesting. But those graphics of the fired and than Samba. Like
they use their marketing budget on that one, I think.
But yeah, have a read. Grab the information that we stick in the description so that you can send some sort of submission in there. Get noisy about it. There's no point in sitting there waiting for everyone else to do it. And I think everyone has a part to play, right? So
yep,
absolutely.
Good stuff. Okay, done for now. Hope that was helpful for somebody.
Okay.
Awesome.
Good stuff.
Thanks, gents.
Thanks, guys.
Catch ya.